Hello, good morning, my lovely goblins and ghouls. I am your host, Haunted Goose. And guys, we are going to get scientific, I guess. Oh boy, I really hope this one doesn't turn out to be like a ragey one. So, I'm just gonna put my disclaimer here in the bottom. I'll read it out loud just in case you guys are new to my channel. I'm not a currently licensed behavioral technician, and I'm only speaking from experience of when I was supervised and employed within a team of licensed BCBAs and BCABAs. If you've heard those terms for the first time, don't worry. It's a niche brand of employment, which I found myself basically after. I know this isn't technically necessary, but I think it's important that my listeners, especially that I'm going to upload this on YouTube later. This one is a bit more educational. If you guys are not into that, I completely understand. I'm coming from a place that I'm not currently licensed because of where I've chosen to live. I don't have supervisors to practice under, and therefore to maintain my license. I needed that, and so it basically expired. So I'm kind of in an employment, I guess, limbo, and so I'm not currently practicing. Part of my license is to be supervised and to practice under like heavy supervision because the decisions are not mine to solely make. I was licensed under the Behavioral Analyst Certification Board. That's where I'm getting all of my information. Especially, we are going to be talking about ethics and um, that I really, when I watched this video, I didn't think I was going to be as fired up just because a lot of the discussions that are being talked about, they're within my field of profession. And so this is just plain like a lot of the arguments that are being made is about gender and about I guess the science behind things, but I can tell you as a profession and it's just plain bad science and it's not even correct. So as a professional, I kind of wanted to give my 2 cents of my experience, but I can understand the argument of, well, you're not currently in the field, you're not currently practicing, and you're not being currently supervised, so your takes are superficial, which I can understand. That's why I wanted to be at least as transparent as I am with my credentials. But a lot of the points that he makes the speaker. Oh, hello, Falcon. How are you? Good morning. I'm sorry, we're going to get a little sciency today. I also have a Guillermo del Toro interview at the end because it may get a little passionate, I guess, in this discussion. So I have that. That's a little bit more fun down the line once we get to all of this talk. But I was sent this video because I've been talking about red pill rhetoric, and I honestly am in a special position because I am a woman. I have experience in behavioral science, and yeah, if you want to like tune in, I'll probably do the more fun stream later on. But you stick around if this is something. I'm always welcoming, whoever wants to hear this. Um, so I have experience in this field, uh, and I kind of want to um, debate these points he's making with science and with the practice of me being in behavioral therapy and why his information is incorrect in the sense of science and also with behavior. Um, so, as a fundamental flaw, like of what he's talking about. So, I kind of want to come into that and also with what he talks about. I feel like I'm credentialed enough, I guess, to discuss this, but it's really to talk about in discussion because I know when I saw the video, I will say ahead of time that I did watch the video already, and it does stir up, and I will be clear with this, it does stir up a defensiveness, but that's not, I feel, productive because in and of itself, I think the discussion needs to be debated within science because what he's talking about is an actual practice science. And since you are speaking from a place, because I don't believe he is credentialed or anything like that, but even as an idea and as a concept, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's talking from a place of ignorance and from just plain. So I want to give him that grace that he's talking from a place of just not knowing, and I want to kind of almost duke it out in the sense of, hey, hi, I'm a woman, and also I am in behavior, like I was in the practicing field of behavioral therapy, and so these are why your points don't match up or align with what your audience is telling you, especially that he is talking about emotions and feelings and things like that. So those two sciences, they're not the same. So once we get to this point, oh, thank you, Falcon. Those two things are not the same, and like I will explain why, and when we get to that. So I will apologize in advance because I am a human. You are a woman? Okay, good. Then I will warn you, Falcon. I had to watch the video 3 times, and there are going to be things that if you are looking here for a relaxing time, you may not find it. He says pretty inflammatory things because I believe it's for attention because it is crass. He says crass things. That's the only polite way I can say it because it's an attention grabber. So, but I want to kind of knock it down with the scientific behavioral part of it. So, we'll listen to him, but I will warn you, this is not going to be a fun. He's not a fun speaker. Like if for our um, yeah, so I'll just warn you, this is my disclaimer. So if at any point you feel uncomfortable, please be free to tune out, and then you can catch me on my next stream where we'll be talking about fun horror directors and things like that. It's just this video was sent to me and I want to respect the audience that gave it to me with like kind of like, hey, look, there's science. I really want to even play the weird science outro or something like that, like weird science. You can tell I'm so nervous. Okay, all right, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Let's just get it over with. Oh boy. All right. Oh God. Ooh, I'm so sorry that blasted you. Ooh, I apologize. Or maybe it was just on my end. Let me know if the audio is okay though. I love that maniacal laugh. Even it gets me every time. Like it hits me. Like it's like wow. Like never share your feelings. Oh, let me know if the audio is okay though. It's like never share your woman. Ha 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 ha. Oh, you can't hear that. Oh, I'm glad you told me that. See, this is why. Oh, sorry. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh, I'm glad you told me. Let me see. Ooh, technical difficulties. Let me see. Let me see. Properties. Sorry. Let's try this one, this one. Okay, let's see, let's see.
When I say you should not share
Better?
your feelings with a woman, I'm not saying that you should. When I say you should not share your
It's
feelings
all right,
with a
perfect.
woman, no, never.
You need to
Well,
hear.
before anything, let's define
Did you
what.
hear the cackle? Like that's very important. This is very important. The cackle is very, very important. Because that's oh good, because that's what I hear every time he makes a point. I really want to make that like bit of like being like ha ha ha.
What sharing feelings actually means, okay? When I
Okay,
say
great.
you should not share your feelings
The
with a
laugh is
woman,
great.
I'm not saying that you should not express how you feel to a woman. On the contrary, you should express how you feel, especially if what she's doing makes you happy or makes you unhappy.
Okay, this is probably the only point that I actually agree with him on. It's like, yes, feelings. Um, I guess we'll get into attachment theory. That's not my wheelhouse of it because that's actual psychology. So in this speech, he does confuse feelings and behavior. They're two different things. So yes, in the sense of companionship, in friendship or anything, communication is very important because then you emote basically boundaries. So what you do and don't like. It's very important for autonomy, for clarification. But yeah, that's probably the only point I agree with him on in the sense of romance. I'm not even talking about like in a clinical sense because that's not like what we do as behavioral therapists. Like it's just more of a sense of like, yeah, that's healthy communication. Yeah. Like I'm talking more about experience in my personal life where I'm like, yeah.
You should be very, very clear about it. No stoicism, no like swallowing it, and no, 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 no. If she does something that you do not like, you make it really,
That's
really
important.
clear. You make it clear by your expression, by the tone of your voice, and by your words. You tell her, I don't like this, don't do it anymore. Okay?
Yep.
And on the flip side, of course, when she does something that you do like, tell her. Tell her, make it clear. Make it clear. Don't hide your emotion. If
Oh yeah,
she
especially once you get into a relationship, like for a long time, it's the little things. Like it's really the little things that count. Just because sometimes you take it for granted, and then it's less likely for your partner to feel appreciated. So I think, especially in the yeah, in the early stages, but also as you become more committed, or are in a relationship for a while, it's pretty awesome, like in that sense too, because then your partner feels noticed, like feels more attended to. I believe at least I can speak on that end on me, where it's like sometimes with life it becomes more responsibility and things like that. So I agree with that.
is doing something that you appreciate, okay? Whatsoever that may be, no matter how small it may be, especially if it's something that you
Oh, don't worry. It's honestly, I always joke around with people because literally I only dated one person and it was my husband. It just like I was terrified of dating for the longest time because I was always about my schoolwork and my studies and work and blah blah blah. And literally it was because my husband was related to my best friend, and so it just so happened like the stars just aligned where it's like, oh my gosh, like you're cool and cool, like like let's spend forever together. Like I know I'm an outlier in that, like where it's not that but it's I like to at least phrase my content in this way where it's like even if you're not in a romantic relationship, even if it's something, no matter even the type, if let's say even you're asexual, you're polyamorous, anything like that, these to know about your emotions and how to communicate them, it's just a human, like even I would even argue skill because it's not something that like you are inherently born with knowing. It's something that you practice and get better at with time and practice. That's it. So in that way, I'm there with you. No, like lucky in the sense, but I was terrified, girl. Like it was not a fun time. Like I was terrified of it. And when it happened, yeah, but I also tell people marriage isn't like the final goal. Like it's not this gold standard. You know why? Because fine, you get married and then you got to maintain it. It's like when, yeah, I got my, let's say, not to be superficial, let's say you got your like dream home or your dream car or something, but yeah, like got to put gas in it, got to mow the lawn. There's things that like, and even when you fall out of love and stuff, that happens. It's a very normal part of human beings. Yeah, I just don't really like people, if you know what I mean. That is perfectly fine. I completely understand. Sometimes the hassle of things, that's how I was. I was just like, it is. Trust me, even if it's something where you choose that, hey, romance isn't your thing, that is perfectly fine. You can live a happy and fulfilled life. And this guy apparently, Falcon, since we're like, hey, birds of a feather, I didn't mean to do that, but um, you're gonna get real upset. Like, you know why? Because I got real upset when he's about to drop this truth bomb on us as women. And like, I hate being around people. Like, I have no friends just because of how much I just. And that's okay. That is like an attachment thing, and you gotta do you. By the end of it, you have to feel fulfilled in your life. And oh, but hold on, because this guy is gonna apparently tell us that we're wrong, Falcon. We're wrong. Just wait. Just wait. We're gonna laugh together. Let's go.
want repeated in the relationship, right? You want your woman to, I don't know, clean up your room or make you dinner or something like that.
Like
When she makes a
stereotypes.
nice dinner, praise her. Yeah. And you know what you should look into, by the way, insofar as this is concerned? You should look into dog training manuals. Oh, yeah.
I want you to let that sink in real quick. Like, let that sink in real quick. Look into dog training manuals, right? So the first thing that bubbles up in me, one, uh, how degrading. One, two, uh, why would he say that? Because it's for shock. It is a shock thing. Now, what I'm going to delve into specifically is what he's talking about is positive reinforcement, okay, as a science, right? So it's the Pavlovian, probably you guys have heard of this in science class at some point. This is why I wanted to bring this up. It's because this is sometimes the introduction into behavioral therapy. You've probably heard of this or talked about the pigeon experiment, the one like where the pigeon is taught to turn on a light bulb or something like that, or where mice are basically motivated to run a maze with cheese, that sort of thing. No, trust me, if you hear that and feel rage, I I am with you. Like don't worry. But I want to come at this in the sense of science because this is what he are. Oh, yes, exactly, exactly. And what I want to argue with this as a behavioral therapist is behavior and feelings are not the same thing. And I will argue why they're not the same thing. So I will comfort your anger with science because he's talking about science. So I want to combat that with science. So then all my women out there can can understand that what he's about to say is false. It's a falsehood because the inklings, like the kind of introduction of what he's talking about, sure, alrighty, but behavior and feelings are not the same thing, and this is because I know I have like a little cute like rainbow PowerPoint. Like I know it's very like second grade, but this is how it makes me feel better, and I think it's more eye catching. So like crayon drawing aside. So why behavior and feelings are not the same? It's because behavior is actually observable and feelings are non-observable. And what I mean by this is that they're measured. Like one can be measured and the other one can't. So, for example, in my job, an observable behavior is basically, let's say, something that can be recorded, something that is an action, and then feelings obviously are a anger, like happiness. You can't measure those things unless you are, let's say, um, dictating them yourself, but even then they're not a science and they're not something that it's self-reporting, but it even that's not something that can be actually like even if you were to sit down a person and measure it from 1 to 10, from person to person, it's going to be different and there's no way to make it uniform, right? So what he is arguing is basically about positive and negative reinforcement in the sense of, let me see if I can pop that in. So when we are, and this is, mind you, like, I practice in behavioral therapy with a team. Like, so I was running things that are called trials. So it's basically where you observe behavior. So it's kind of what's called ABC data. I hope I'm not getting too deep in the weeds for this, but I at least want to answer this sort of thing with the idea of what he's talking about. He's giving a superficial answer to something that I really can't. I worked with a team of people to like where you dictate something as a behavior by basically the antecedent of what happens before the actual action and then the consequence of that. And that's how you label behavior. And then once that behavior is labeled, then you run trials to measure the frequency. Uh, so in the sense of time or amount of that behavior taking place. And what he's talking about, and this is where I'm like kind of so like tied into. Oh, don't worry, Falcon. Don't worry. You can always watch this on a playback or not. You're good. Um, so basically, what he's talking about is reinforcement and punishment. He just talks about basically positive and negative reinforcement. So anyone who's out there who's not sure what that means, basically reinforcement just increases behavior. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's quote unquote good or bad for whatever reason. He talks about reinforcement like he talks about negative and positive reinforcement in the sense of increasing and decreasing behavior when he's actually talking about reinforcement and punishment. Punishment is in a sense of like what you would think of, oh, like punishment is like spanking or timeout or things. It's not. It's basically something or that decreases a behavior. So this would mean, let's say, layman's term, a a car ticket or something. If you add or give somebody a car ticket, oh, okay, they're likely to decrease the behavior of, let's say, speeding, something like that. If you were to, let's say, for example, a child is um, acting out in class and you were to remove, let's say, a star sticker from them because they were acting up or something, let's say talking out of turn, that would decrease the. But the thing is that you only know if something is a reinforcement or a punishment after the fact. Like this is not something that is predictable in the sense of like, oh yes, Timmy really loves candy and all the time. Like you only know it's a reinforcement or a punishment after the fact. And this is what he is talking out of a place that, oh yes, if this is a cold hard fact that your partner or your romantic partner is going to react this way, and it's just not. Like I'm even talking about a place that I was supervised and we could only make decisions after data was collected. So, if you are going to teach this unethical practice, because it is unethical in and of itself, and you find a willing victim out there to be like, ah, yes, I would love to go through these trials and stuff like that. I consent to these trials. At least get your science right, So unless you're willing to actually record all of these things and, kind of in a trial basis, that's the only really thing that I can talk about. I apologize if I like possibly jumped several guns. Let me know, like, or jumped several leaps in that. But yeah, so he's mixing up reinforcement and punishment in that way. Um, and we'll get to that, I guess. But let me know because sometimes even I get like fiery and I talk really fast. So just let me know on that one.
Oh, yeah. Like positive reinforcement. Yeah, the
Mhm.
whole thing. Study that because it works. Because human beings are animals, okay? If it works for dogs, it's going to work on a woman, okay? So, yeah, and it's not me putting them down and saying, oh, they're bitches. No, I am saying that human beings, all human beings, are animals. And we respond to positive reinforcement.
Okay, so all right, volatile description aside, okay? Feelings, going back to the thing of what I said, where feelings and behaviors are not the same, right? So what I argue with that, um, at first I was going to argue the ethics of this. So in the sense of like, okay, you cannot basically, if you are going to practice this behavioral, thing of positive punishment or, reinforcement or anything like that, you can't make the like my initial response with what he was saying, it's like, well, you can't really discriminate against gender or anything because funny enough, when you run trials, and I can tell you this from experience, I had four at my highest count, I had four clients, two were male and two were female, and uh, of similar ages. And funny enough, the data is not different. So, with this argument I make is that yes, we are all human beings in the sense of he is correct. In and of itself, when you are treating behavior, it is unisex. It is something that, like, you do not change your data or change the efficacy of your practice by gender. So, this is correct. And also, it's to the point where even our ethical code is strict on not making decisions from age, gender, race, culture, anything. So it's with the idea that human beings are, um, in and of itself, there's no like gender difference within the uh, basis of making a decision of treat quote unquote treatment or trial or anything like that when you are practicing behavioral therapy. So, however, where he says that women are like animals, and because people are like animals, I say that there are four functions of behavior, of why somebody does what they do. And this has nothing to do with this description, like his description in and of itself is just hyperbolic. It's just like, great, so we're animals, so like, what does that mean? Like, because he's equating the just solely about this Pavlovian experiment, right? So he's simplifying the idea of a behavior of like women do this, women do this, reward woman, reward woman with like thing, right? But the thing is, it's more complicated than that. So why a behavior is done, like basically, there's a root to why a behavior, and not feeling, because we're not talking about emotions, because he's confusing that. We're talking about a why a person does an action of a behavior. Okay, so there's four functions of it in our practice. So why the person engages in a behavior is to avoid something that they don't like. So an escape from an activity, a room, anything like that. Attention, a person engages in behavior to receive attention. And tangible, so something that is an object, a desirable object. Or sensory, a person engages in a behavior because it physically feels good or relieves something that feels bad. So those are the four. It's not simply because uh, men and women are like chimps, and so that's why. That's an oversimplification of the argument. So if you are going to talk about this, I would suggest just looking into these four reasons of uh, behavior of why people do what they do, and don't chalk it up to uh, biology, because there's more to it than that. When we are observing a client, it's the reason that we write our reports, it has to be at least tied into these four reasons in some way, or it's not valid. We don't give biological answers in behavior. We give measurable ones in data. So, and that it needs to be tied up in this. And if you want to argue that, well, the roots of these four functions are within biology, then
So what I meant to say here, I'm sorry if it wasn't clear, is that the four functions of behavior are shared among human beings as a total. There's no, let's say, one function that's specifically male or one function that's specifically female. These are traits that are shared among humans as a total. So that's what I meant by just giving a biological answer. So, for example, someone being a biological female or a biological male is not a factor when looking at the functions of behavior, because these are four functions that are shared among all human beings.